The medical bay of Station Haros was silent except for the hum of machines and the steady rhythm of breathing masks. Rows of alien patients rested in pods, their skin glowing faintly under sterile light. The air smelled of medicine and recycled. Oxygen Vera, a young alien nurse with pale silver skin and wide golden eyes, walked quickly between the pods. Her kind were precise, calm, and careful in every movement. For years she had treated her people, the Torvans, who were fragile but predictable. Their illnesses followed patterns, their wounds behaved in the same ways. Healing them was like solving an equation, measured and safe. But tonight, she faced something she had never truly understood. On the last bed lay a human. The human was tall compared to most Torvans, his body scarred and strong, even while unconscious. He was called Joran, a mechanic from one of the mining ships that docked with Haros. Hours earlier, there had been an accident in the cargo bay. A steel beam had struck his arm, cutting deep into the muscle. At first, Vera thought he would die. Instantly. The wound was ugly, raw, and messy. Her people would never survive such a strike. But the human did not collapse. He had walked into the medical bay himself, bleeding but steady, insisting he only needed a quick patch. Now as he lay under her care, Vera saw something that made her chest tighten with fear. His arm was swelling. The flesh around the wound ballooned outward, red and hot. Each minute it grew thicker, tighter, until it looked ready to burst. No Torvan body could withstand that. To her eyes, this was the sign of a fatal infection. Her hands trembled. She checked the scanners again. The numbers did not make sense. His heart was strong, his breathing steady, but the swelling was spreading. "This cannot be right," she whispered. Her training screamed at her. Swelling meant tissue failure. Swelling meant poison flooding the body. Swelling meant death. She tapped her wrist communicator. "This is Nurse Vera in Med Bay 2, she said quickly. "Emergency, human patient showing catastrophic reaction. Immediate assistance required." The reply crackled. "Stabilize until doctors arrive." Her breath came short. Stabilize? How could she stabilize something she did not understand? Vera leaned closer to the human. "Do you hear me? Stay awake. Do not give in." The man's eyelids fluttered. He opened his eyes halfway and looked at her with surprising calm. "Nurse, what's wrong?" His voice was weak but steady. "Your body is failing," Vera cried, unable to hide the panic in her tone. "Your arm, it is swelling at impossible speed. If we do not cut away the damage, it will spread to your chest. You will die." To her shock, the human gave a soft laugh. "Relax," he muttered. "It's just swelling. Happens all the time." Her golden eyes widened. "All the time? How can this be normal?" But his head dropped back against the bed. He seemed unconcerned, almost amused, as though she had overreacted. Vera felt her pulse race. Nothing about this matched what she knew. She opened the database of human biology, scrolling through alien-written notes. The entries were scattered, incomplete, and full of contradictions. Some called humans dangerously fragile. Others described them as stubborn survivors. One line caught her eye. "Humans react with extreme bodily responses when injured. Cause unknown." Extreme responses. That explained nothing. Her gaze returned to the swelling arm. The skin stretched tight, hot like fire. To her people, such a sight meant death within minutes, yet the human's heartbeat remained strong. His breath was steady. His eyes still carried a spark of awareness. "Impossible," Vera whispered. The door slid open and two alien assistants entered, startled by the urgency in her call. They approached the bed, their faces grim. "What is this?" one asked. "The human's arm," Vera said quickly. "Swelling is overtaking it. He is at the edge of collapse. We must act. Prepare for surgical extraction." The assistants nodded. One moved to fetch instruments. But before they could begin, the human spoke again. "Don't cut," he said firmly, his voice rising through the haze of pain. Vera froze. "You do not understand. If we do not act, you will not survive." shook his head slowly. Trust me, this is how we heal. The words struck her harder than any alarm. Heal? What nonsense was this? How could swelling, this violent, ugly reaction, be healing? The assistants exchanged nervous glances. To them, humans were still a mystery, a rare species that only passed through the station now and then. None of them had seen one in this state before. Vera's mind whirled. Was this stubbornness? Madness? Or was there something about human biology she had never been taught? She stepped back, her golden eyes locked on the injured mechanic. He closed his eyes again, breathing deeply, as though his strange, swollen arm was nothing more than a passing fever. The nurse's chest tightened. She was trained to act fast, to cut infection before it spread, to cleanse wounds before they consumed the body. Yet here was a creature who told her to do nothing. Her instincts screamed at her to save him. Her logic whispered that she did not understand. And so she stood frozen, her mind torn, watching the swelling grow. For the first time in her career, Nurse Vera was afraid, not of losing a patient, but of realizing she did not know what she was truly seeing. The part ended with her whispering into the still air. What? Are you human? The medical bay lights dimmed slightly as the station's night cycle began, but Nurse Vera could not relax. Her eyes stayed fixed on the swollen arm of the human lying before her. The flesh looked unnatural, stretched and red, as if it were preparing to burst. In her training, she had been taught that swelling meant the end. Torvins did not swell when wounded. They simply weakened, their tissues collapsing quietly until their systems failed. What she was seeing now defied her understanding. The human's heart monitor beeped steadily. His breathing was deep and controlled. It made no sense. How could a body under such stress remain so stable? Vera paced around the bed, her long silver fingers twitching with nervous energy. Two other assistants remained close by, whispering to one another in low tones. They were frightened too, though they tried not to show it. Is it spreading? One asked. Yes, Vera answered, her golden eyes scanning the angry red lines around the wound. It expands every minute. Look at the heat levels. The assistant flinched. That much heat would kill a Torvan within moments. Exactly, Vera said. This is why we must act. I do not understand why he refuses intervention. The human stirred. His eyes blinked open, tired but calm. His lips curled slightly in a weak grin. You're still worrying, he said softly. Told you. It's fine. Vera leaned forward, her voice urgent. How can this be fine? Your body is under attack. The swelling will crush your own tissues. The man chuckled faintly, though the sound was rough. That's the point. My body's fighting back. The words shook her. Fighting back? In her species, the body never fought back. It either held steady or collapsed. The idea that flesh could resist on its own was unbelievable. You are mistaken, she said firmly. Your body is failing. The man turned his head slightly, meeting her gaze with surprising steadiness. I've had this before. Got burned once, same thing. Got a deep cut once, same thing. The swelling means I'm alive. Means my body's doing what it should. Vera's assistants exchanged uneasy glances. They muttered to each other in disbelief. That cannot be true, one whispered. A body does not survive damage by making more damage. The human gave a tired shrug. Maybe not for you, but for us? That's how it works. Vera's mind raced. The alien database of human biology had been vague and unfinished, full of contradictions. But perhaps this was why, because human bodies worked in ways no other race understood. Still, her fear did not fade. She felt her chest tighten. Each time she looked at the swollen flesh, it looked deadly. Every instinct told her to act, to cut away the danger before it spread further. You risk everything by refusing treatment, she said, trying once more to reason with him. The man's eyes glimmered with quiet amusement. You think I don't know my own body? I've lived with it for 35 years. Trust me, nurse, I've got this. His words carried a strange weight. Despite the obvious pain, he spoke with a calmness she could not understand. He was not panicking, not begging for help, not collapsing into despair like her people would. He faced the swelling as if it were a normal part of life. Vera felt frustration rise. How could a creature face such danger with laughter? Was it ignorance, or was it something else, something deeper, rooted in what it meant to be human? The assistants grew restless. One finally spoke up. "We cannot stand by. If the swelling reaches his chest, he will be lost. Nurse, we must prepare for invasive procedure." Vera hesitated. Her instincts agreed, yet the human's words lingered. He noticed her hesitation and gave another small laugh. "You aliens really don't get it, do you? We don't break that easy. My body knows what it's doing." Vera frowned. "You call this control? Your flesh expands without limit. Your skin burns. That is not control." But the human's voice grew stronger. "It's defense. My body traps infection, pushes it back. The swelling protects me, not kills me." The words made her freeze. Protection? Could it be true? Was this swelling not the sign of death, but of survival? Her golden eyes studied the arm again. The heat radiated outward, but only around the wound. The redness stopped at a clear boundary. It did not spread randomly as true infection would. It was contained. Her breath caught. She realized she was not watching failure. She was watching something Orzed, something Dell. The medical bay felt tense, though the human lying on the bed remained calm. His arm continued to swell, the skin hot and taut, but his breathing never faltered. Nurse Vera stood at his side, her golden eyes studying the strange process. Every instinct in her body screamed danger, yet every fact she observed told another story, one that she could not easily ignore. She walked to the nearest console and pulled up the medical logs. The records of humans in Torvan hospitals were scarce and incomplete. Most entries described them as weak, fragile, or unstable. Some mentioned their bodies reacting violently to injury, but none explained how a human could survive under conditions that would kill a Torvan instantly. Vera's fingers danced over the touchpad as she pulled up reference images of previous cases. She studied the patterns carefully. "Look," she said to herself, pointing to the inflamed area around the wound. "The swelling is not random. It's focused, controlled." The assistants looked over her shoulder, their eyes wide. They had begun to doubt their initial panic. "Focused?" one whispered. "It looks like it's spreading." "No," Vera replied softly. "It is growing, yes, but only where it is needed. It stops at the edges of the injury. This is not uncontrolled destruction. It's containment." The human stirred and lifted his head slightly. His face was pale but calm. "That's right. My body knows what to do. The swelling traps bacteria, pushes them out, builds strength around the wound. It's why I can keep going even after something like this." Vera stared at him in disbelief. "You mean this is a defense?" He nodded slowly, wincing slightly at the heat radiating from his arm. "Exactly. It's painful, yes, but it works. Your species wouldn't understand. Torvans, you would die before the swelling could help you." The assistants exchanged anxious glances. One shook his head. "How can a body survive this? Our patients would collapse instantly." "That's what makes humans different," the man said quietly. He shifted slightly on the bed, grimacing but still smiling. "We're built to fight even when it hurts. We heal through struggle, not by avoiding it." Vera felt a strange mixture of fear and fascination. She had spent her life believing the body's signs were always warnings of danger. Now she realized that for humans, the signals she feared were actually evidence of life. Her mind raced. Could it be that human biology operated on a principle no alien species could comprehend? Could swelling, something her species considered fatal, actually be a form of resistance? "Show me," she whispered. The human tilted his head, understanding her curiosity. He slowly flexed the fingers of his swollen hand, moving them despite the stiffness and pain. "See? Controlled. I can still use it. It's hurting, yes, but it's not stopping me. My body is adjusting, adapting, fighting back. Vera leaned closer, touching the arm gently. The heat radiated through her gloved hand. She expected it to burn her, to signal imminent collapse, but it did not. Instead, she felt the rhythmic pulse of life beneath the swelling. Her assistant stepped back, hesitant. "It's alive," one whispered. "Yes," Vera said softly, almost to herself. "Not dying, alive." The human chuckled faintly. "Exactly. Most aliens think we're fragile, but this is why humans survive in places no one else can. We don't quit. Our bodies don't quit. Even when the world hits us hard, we keep going." Vera's mind went back to the earlier accident in the cargo bay. The steel beam had struck him with immense force. A Torvan would have been crushed or incapacitated immediately. Yet this human had walked, climbed, and insisted on treatment on his own terms. His calmness, his laughter, his strength under pain, all of it made sense now. She studied the inflamed area again. It seemed to move and shift slightly, like it had a mind of its own. She realized it wasn't chaotic. It was precise. Every millimeter of swelling seemed purposeful, protecting vital areas, supporting healing tissues, and pushing out threats. "Your body is smart," she said. "More than I imagined. I thought I was here to save you, but maybe I am here to learn." The human smiled faintly. "You are learning. Most aliens don't see this. They panic, they try to stop it, but humans, we trust ourselves. Our bodies have worked for millions of years. We survive because we adapt, even when it hurts." Vera felt a strange sense of awe. This was not weakness. This was resilience. Humans faced injury, pain, and danger with a combination of instinct, patience, and courage that no algorithm or medical procedure could match. Suddenly, alarms went off in the station. A minor hull breach had occurred in the storage section, releasing a small burst of toxic gas. Most alien patients would collapse instantly in such conditions. Vera glanced at the human. His face remained calm. He did not panic, did not struggle, did not demand immediate extraction. He simply adjusted his position, breathing steadily, allowing his body to respond. Her assistants gasped as the other patients slumped, weak from the gas exposure. Yet the human remained upright, steady, and alert. His swollen arm throbbed but did not hinder him. Vera realized something she could not ignore. Human resilience was not just mental, it was physical. His body could take damage, stress, and even near-fatal threats and still function. Her mind reeled. All her training, all her assumptions about fragility and healing had been wrong. The swelling she had feared as the beginning of death was, in fact, proof of survival. You are incredible," she whispered, almost reverently. The human looked at her with faint amusement. "I'm just built to last, you'll see. Humans aren't weak. We endure what others cannot." Vera nodded slowly, her heart pounding with a mix of fear, relief, and newfound curiosity. For the first time, she realized that humans were not simply another species to treat. They were a lesson in survival, resilience, and adaptation. As the alarms quieted and the bay settled again, she stayed at his side, watching the swelling slowly subside in some areas while remaining strong where it was needed most. She realized she had witnessed something extraordinary, a human body healing itself in ways no alien science could explain. And deep down, she felt a quiet excitement. Perhaps there was much more to learn about humans than any medical record could ever reveal. For the first time, Nurse Vera understood that fear was not always truth, and that strength could appear in forms she had never imagined. The swelling, once terrifying, now represented hope. And for the human lying there, it was just another step in the way he survived, calm, steady, and unstoppable. The hull breach had passed and the alarms finally quieted, but the tension in the medical bay lingered. Vera stood beside the human, her golden eyes tracing the swelling that had both terrified and fascinated her. She had spent hours studying it, documenting every pulse, every shift in the inflamed tissue. Her initial panic had given way to curiosity, and now something deeper: admiration. The assistants, once nervous and hesitant, watched in silent awe. They had begun to understand that what they thought was a dangerous symptom was, in fact, a form of defense. It was precise, deliberate, and controlled. A human body could fight back in ways their science had never prepared them to see. Vera crouched next to the bed, placing a gloved hand near the human's arm. "It's incredible," she whispered. "Your body. It doesn't just survive injury. It uses the injury to heal." The human smiled faintly, though fatigue showed in his face. "Exactly. Pain doesn't stop us. Damage doesn't stop us. It teaches us how to get stronger." Vera nodded slowly. "Your species, your biology, it's designed for endurance. You adapt even when the odds are against you." He shrugged lightly. "We don't really think about it. We just deal with it. If we panic, we fail. If we stay calm, we survive." The nurse studied him carefully. There was more than biology here. There was mindset, discipline, and an understanding of one's own limits. She realized that humans combined intelligence and instinct in a way that no alien species she had ever known did. The swelling in his arm had begun to subside slightly, but the warmth remained, a constant reminder of the life surging beneath his skin. Vera traced the outline of the inflamed tissue with her eyes, noting how it had grown only where it was needed, forming a protective barrier around the wound. No infection had spread. No other systems had been compromised. This was not random. It was organized, deliberate, purposeful. Her mind raced with questions. How had humans evolved to survive in such a way? How could a body endure trauma that would destroy another species? And why did humans remain calm when everything around them screamed danger? The human noticed her gaze. "You have a lot to learn about humans," he said softly. "Most aliens panic at the first sign of injury. You study it. You try to fix it, but you don't understand it. You see danger where there is none." Vera swallowed, unsure how to respond. She had been trained to trust her instincts, to act before it was too late. But this human, fragile by all Torvin standards, had survived what would have killed 10 of her patients. She could not ignore the lesson in front of her. "What happens if the swelling doesn't stop?" she asked. He lifted his arm slightly, showing her the movement. "It will adjust. My body regulates it. Too much, and it slows down. Not enough, and it strengthens. It always finds balance. That's how we survive." Vera's assistants murmured among themselves, clearly struggling to accept this new understanding. One whispered, "We thought humans were weak. Now, I don't know what to think." Vera nodded. "I think we have misunderstood them entirely. We have underestimated." The calm of the medical bay shattered suddenly with a loud alarm. A section of the station's outer hull had been damaged during routine cargo operations. Air pressure dropped, emergency lights flashed, and oxygen levels fell in certain sectors. Most of the alien patients groaned, weak and disoriented. Their bodies could not withstand the stress, collapsing under conditions that had minimal effect on the human lying on the bed. Nurse Vera's golden eyes darted across the monitors. Her heart raced, but the human beside her remained calm. Joran, the mechanic, had already sat up despite his swollen arm, and assessed the situation with steady, clear eyes. "This is bad," Vera said, moving quickly. "The others, they'll need immediate care." Joran lifted a finger toward the monitors. "I can help stabilize some of them, but we need to act fast. There's no time to panic." Vera hesitated, watching him move with surprising precision. She had expected a human to be cautious, even frightened, given the swelling and injury he was carrying. But he treated the situation like any other problem. An obstacle to solve, not a catastrophe to fear. She followed him as he directed the assistants to secure weakened pods and reroute oxygen flow. His movements were deliberate, his instructions clear. Even his injured arm did not slow him significantly. Every step, every motion, radiated control and resilience. "Stand back," he said, lifting a panel from the floor with ease. The swelling in his arm caused him discomfort, but it did not stop him. "This section is venting oxygen. If we can patch it manually, we might save the others." Vera blinked in astonishment. Humans were never supposed to endure this much damage and still perform under pressure. And yet here he was, coordinating, lifting, stabilizing, and calmly, issuing commands as if nothing were wrong. The assistants murmured among themselves, clearly impressed. One whispered, "How can he do this?" Vera shook her head slightly. "He's human, that's how." Minutes passed, and the situation grew, more urgent. A small fire had broken out near the breach, spreading toxic smoke. Most alien patients panicked, unable to control their fear or physical response. Joren, however, remained composed. He directed the humans and the assistants, moving quickly to isolate the fire and close vents. Vera's heart pounded in her chest. She realized that the swelling she had feared earlier was nothing compared to the humans' endurance under this new, extreme stress. The body that had seemed fragile had become a tool of action, carrying him through danger that would have destroyed any Torvin. "Here," Joren said, adjusting a support beam with his strong, tense arm. The swelling pulsed visibly, yet he did not falter. "Keep this steady. We'll seal it together." Vera assisted him, her hands trembling slightly. She had never worked so closely with a patient who was actively surviving while injured. He did not complain, did not beg, and did not show panic. His resilience was infectious, giving her courage and focus she had never experienced before. Finally, the fire was contained and the breach stabilized. Oxygen levels returned to near normal, and the remaining alien patients slowly began to recover. The assistants sighed in relief, some collapsing from exhaustion. Vera looked at the human, her golden eyes wide with awe. His arm remained swollen, and his body radiated heat from the effort, but he smiled faintly, exhausted but unbroken. "You," she said, finding her voice. "You survived this. All of it. While injured, and while saving others." He shrugged lightly, catching his breath. "I told you. This is what we do. We adapt. We endure. We don't stop." Vera shook her head slowly, trying to comprehend the depth of what she had witnessed. For hours, she had feared this human's swelling, believing it would end his life. And yet it had been exactly what allowed him to survive and thrive in the face of true danger. "You're incredible," she whispered. "Not just physically. Mentally, too. You keep calm, even when everything around you collapses. Your species, I don't think I've ever seen anything like it." He smiled faintly. "It's not about being incredible. It's about surviving. Life doesn't wait for you to heal slowly. You face it, you act, you endure. That's what humans do." Vera looked at him closely. The swelling in his arm had begun to decrease, a slow and steady normalization. It had reached the point where it was still painful but no longer dangerous. Every other patient would have been lost in such circumstances. Every other species, she realized, would have collapsed. But humans adapted. Her heart felt heavy with admiration and respect. She realized that what she had learned over the last few hours was more than biology. It was philosophy. Humans survived not because they were the strongest or the fastest, but because they refused to surrender, even when their own bodies threatened to fail. "You've taught me something," she said softly. "I thought I was here to care for you, to save you, but you've shown me what it means to endure, to survive, to keep going when everything says you shouldn't." He looked at her with tired but steady eyes. "Most people only see our weaknesses. They panic at the first sign of injury. They don't understand that survival isn't about avoiding pain, it's about facing it. That's why humans thrive in situations other species can't handle." Vera nodded slowly. She knew she would never forget this day. She had seen human endurance at its purest: physical resilience, mental calm, and a refusal to accept defeat. The assistants began to murmur among themselves, sharing what they had learned. Even in her culture, the lesson was clear. Humans were extraordinary. Not perfect, not invincible, but capable of surviving what others could not. The human lay back on the bed, exhausted but still smiling faintly. The swelling in his arm remained, a visible reminder of the ordeal, but it no longer seemed dangerous. Instead, it was proof of life, of resilience, and of the remarkable strength of humans. Vera watched him, feeling a quiet reverence. She had witnessed a great trial, a test of endurance that most beings would fail, and yet here he was, alive, steady, and unbroken. For the first time she realized the truth. Humans were not just survivors. They were a species built to endure the impossible. And as she whispered to herself, she felt a spark of hope and wonder. If one human can endure all this, what can your species achieve? The medical bay was finally quiet. The alarms had stopped, the fire contained, and the hull breach patched. Alien patients who had struggled under the extreme conditions were slowly recovering, their weak bodies beginning to regain strength. The assistants stood in small groups, murmuring to one another about what they had just witnessed. Vera remained, at the side of the human mechanic, her golden eyes fixed on him. His arm was still swollen, a subtle warmth radiating from the injury, but it no longer appeared dangerous. Instead, it was a visible symbol of endurance, of survival against all odds. Joran, the human, leaned back on the bed, breathing steadily. A faint smile tugged at the corner of his mouth, a mixture of fatigue and quiet satisfaction. "Looks like everything's stable now," he said softly. Vera nodded, unable to speak at first. Words seemed inadequate. She had spent hours fearing this human swelling, convinced it was a sign of imminent death, and yet it had been the very thing that allowed him to survive, an instinctive defense that no alien training could replicate. "You've shown us something incredible," she said finally. "Not just your strength, but your patience, your courage, your resilience. I've learned more from you today than from years of studying my own species." Joran shrugged, still smiling faintly. "It's not magic. It's just how we're built. We face problems, we endure pain, and we keep going. That's what humans do." The assistants nodded, murmuring agreement. Even the most skeptical among them had begun to understand that humans were not fragile creatures. They were survivors, capable of enduring conditions that would destroy any other species. Vera felt a new respect blossoming in her chest. She realized that humans were remarkable not because they avoided danger or pain, but because they confronted it with calm determination and ingenuity. Their bodies, far from fragile, were designed to adapt, to heal, and to endure. Their minds, steady and clear under pressure, allowed them to respond to emergencies that would have paralyzed others. She looked at Joran's swelling arm again, now settling into a steady, healthy state. "I used to think swelling meant death," she said softly. "But now I see. It can mean life, strength, survival." He nodded. "Exactly. Most aliens panic when they see swelling, think it's dangerous. But for us, it's proof that our bodies are fighting back, protecting us, keeping us alive." Vera paused, reflecting on the events of the last few hours. The cargo bay accident, the swelling, the minor hull breach, the fire, they had all been tests, challenges that would have ended most lives. Yet this human had not only survived, but had also helped save others. His determination, combined with his body's incredible resilience, had turned chaos into survival. "You've taught us a valuable lesson," she said quietly. "Humans endure when others would fail. You show us that survival isn't just about strength, it's about courage, patience, and trust in oneself." Joran chuckled softly, exhausted, but proud. "That's what it means to be human. We survive, not because we are invincible, but because we refuse to give up. We find a way even when things seem impossible." Vera felt a profound sense of admiration. She realized that she had underestimated humans, as had her entire species. Their physical strength was remarkable, yes, but it was their mental,